dear, this does everything crown. Who could have supposed I should meet you in town? And whence such fair garments, such prosperity?
Oh, didn't you know I'd been ruined? Said she.
You left us in tatters, without shoes or socks. I'm tired of digging tatters and spudding up docks. And now you've gay bracelets and bright feathers 3.
Yes, that's how we dress when we're ruined, said she.
At home in the barton you said thee and thou and thikoon and theesoon and t'other, but now you're talking quite fitsy for eye company.
Some polish is gained when one's ruined, said she.
Your hands were like paws then, your face blue and bleak, but now I'm bewitched by your delicate cheek. And your little gloves fit as on any lady.
We never do work when we're ruined, said she.
You used to call home life an ag-ridden dream. You'd sigh and you'd sock, but at present you seem to know not of megrims or melancholy.
True, one's pretty lively when one's ruined, said she.
I wish I had feathers and a fine sweeping gown and a delicate face and could strut about town.
My dear, a raw country girl such as you be cannot quite expect that. You ain't ruined, said she.
Well, after the teenage romances that we heard about in the last couple of videos, and 1 or 2 other flirtations down here in Dorset, Hardy finished his training as an architect, and then as a young man in his 20s, he went up to London, 120 miles away, and there he got engaged.
Yes, he did, to a young woman named Eliza Nichols, who, like Hardy, was up from the country to work in London.
And how did she work? What was she? How did she get her money?
Well, her options were very limited. She could either go into domestic service, or the only other way of making a living in those days was in one way or another from a man or from men.
And if we look at the poem, Ruined Maid, that's really about that dilemma which Eliza was facing.
Yes, she did face that dilemma, but of course she chose domestic service.
Paula, we're here at the King's Arms in Dorchester, where Hardy himself came many times and where he set parts of the Mayor of Casterbridge. And what about the voice that he gives to the women in his poems? Because on quite a lot of occasions, like for example, A Ruined Maid, he really does allow the woman to speak. Do you think those are genuine emotions from the woman's side?
Well, I do. I mean, I'm a woman, and I love reading the poems. And obviously, in my book, part of my argument, well, most of my argument is that Hardy gave a voice to women, that he allowed female desire and women's experiences to have a voice in a way that not other male writers were doing. Indeed, not even female writers were doing. Maybe he had that license because he was a man. But what is so extraordinary, and particularly those early poems, he's 25, 26 when he's writing some of these poems. He's very young, and he's doing something that is really very remarkable. He's taking the perspective of the woman over and over and over again. You mentioned the Ruined Maid. Well, that is a theme that we know that it's like the golden thread throughout Hardy. His own mother was pregnant when she had him. Many of his cousins, the women around him in the rural labouring classes, it wasn't unusual to see somebody 8 months pregnant down the aisle. It's what happened. But Hardy is always sympathetic to the female perspective. So even in The Ruined Maid, it's a wonderful poem. It's nuanced and multifaceted because she's ruined, but she's having a really rather wonderful time in town and wearing rather lovely clothes. And it's her voice, and it's a very strong voice. And it's very ironic and parodic and funny. But most of all, it's giving a voice to somebody who is not respectable. A woman that's not respectable. She sold her self-respect. And that's really unusual. That's really unique for somebody to do that. And he does it not just once, over and over again. He wants to see things from the female perspective. He wants to step inside a woman's soul. And he does it so brilliantly and so well. And we see that in the other sonnets, those early sonnets to the She to Him sonnets, the same thing, giving telling its story from the female perspective.
Becky, tell us what you feel about The Ruined Maid.
This is an interesting one. I think this is a very popular poem amongst Hardy fans. I think it's probably one of his most well known for a lot of reasons. It's very comic, it's very funny. It shows Hardy at his most ironic, I think, at his kind of most damning, really criticising the moral. Isn't my favourite. I'm not quite sure why. I haven't really connected with it as much as his other poetry, but there's just something about it, and I don't know if it's coming from a young modern woman's perspective. It doesn't quite sit very well with me, and I think Hardy's irony in it can sometimes be a bit of a double-edged sword, and I think he was very modern and very progressive for his time, but I think perhaps reading it from a 21st century perspective, it's not quite modern enough for me.
Is there a feeling, just trying to understand this, that perhaps these two characters in the poem are almost, they're being used as vehicles to express, you know, albeit, if you like, a reasonably modern sort of idea about the hypocrisy of the society then, but are they just being used as vehicles for that? Is that what?
Yeah, I think so. And I think something important to remember is neither of them are really free. They're both oppressed in their own roles. Amelia is oppressed as a kept woman. She appears to have all this fancy and finery, but she's still effectively under a man's control. And if he so wishes, he could, you know, leave and, you know, let her go back to her old life, into a society where she isn't accepted because of her past. The countrywoman as well, she has this appearance of kind of moral freedom, as you know, an appearance of moral freedom, but she has a really hard life. She works in the fields, she gets up at ridiculous times in the morning, and she probably goes to bed at ridiculous times at night, and so I think it's difficult to really pit them against each other because they're both so oppressed.
Well, we'll be hearing rather more about the relationship between Thomas Hardy and Eliza over the next few videos. But now let's just hear that wonderful, jolly, Ruined Maid poem again.
Oh, Melia, my dear, this does everything crown. Who could have supposed I should meet you in town? And whence such fair garments, such prosperity?
Oh, did you know I'd been ruined? Said she.
You left us in tatters, without shoes or socks, tired of digging potatoes and spudding up docks. And now you've gay bracelets and bright feathers dree.
Yes, that's how we dress when we're ruined, said she.
At home in the barton you said thee and thou, and thikun and theäs and t'other. But now you're talking quite fitsy for high company.
Some polish is gained with one's ruin, said she.
Your hands were like paws then, your face blue and bleak. But now I'm bewitched by your delicate cheek, and your little gloves fit as on any lady.
We never do work when we're ruined, said she.
You used to call home life a hag-ridden dream, and you'd sigh and you'd sock, but at present you seem to know not of megrims or melancholy.
True, one's pretty lively when ruined, said she.
Why wish I had feathers, a fine sweeping gown, and a delicate face, and could strut about town.
My dear, a raw country girl, such as you be, can't quite expect that. You've been ruined, said she.